And I'm Ryan.
And our question was, how did cultures and new technologies diffuse during post-Cold War? After the diminishing of European colonial empires, political barriers were broken down, causing cultural technological developments to increase. As trade continues and businesses sparked, cultural practices became globalized, impacting the whole world with new ideas and information that my group will explain throughout our presentation.
I'm going to be talking about America's Barbie and Iran's Sarah doll. So between the two dolls, there are extremely obvious cultural differences. For example, Sarah wears long robes and head coverings like this, and Barbie is very relaxed about exposing her body. Global Barbie's success demonstrates Western cultural domination in global markets, and Sarah was an example of how countries try to maintain their own cultural traditions. An example of how Barbie was able to spread so successfully was when the U.S. wanted to market Barbie in Japan. What they did was they adapted Barbie to appeal to Japanese cultural opinion by changing her features, and the result was a huge increase in sales.
Okay, so new communications and media have tied the world together to promote global cultural integration and consumption. Currently, consumption of goods has become a satisfaction of wants rather than what you need, and is a form of self-expression. This has resulted in a homogenization of culture and a greater awareness of local tastes. The same fashion and music has become popular throughout various different countries, and the spread of food and beverage advertisements is a symbol of the global marketing of the U.S. culture. You can now find Pepsi, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and Pizza Huts throughout the globe. However, this resulted in the closing of many local restaurants. Still, many countries besides the U.S. have their own brands and products that are internationally famous.
The experiences in the Americas led to U.S. patterns in cultural consumption to dominate the world. A good example of the U.S. patterns in Argentina would be Eva Perón. She became famous and her icon was worldwide. There was also a music style made into a movie called Evita, starring Madonna, that became famous in both Europe and the United States. Evita showed that sharing cultural practices was a two-way phenomenon. In Latin America, there was a Latin version of MTV, which spoke in Spanglish and Chicanos, which meant check us out. Their music was English and Spanish combined together, and it sounded a little something like this. But even with the involvement of other countries in this Pan-American culture, the U.S. cultural sharing was uneven and cultural dominance is still uneven.
Okay, so as technologies improved in communication by radios, TVs, cell phones, and computers being developed, many people believe that this mass media served as like a vehicle for cultural imperialism. For example, the English language was soon able to become the primary language of global communications thanks to these systems. However, the Chinese did not like the idea of being a part of the capitalist influence powers. So in order to contain foreign influence coming from the internet, China created what we call a firewall, or a fang bo qiang. So the function of the fang bo qiang, like, it can be like described as like this. So like say I'm like, I don't know, like foreign influence trying to get into China, and then there's China, and I'll be just like through the internet, and all of a sudden, bock! So yeah. And now we have a special announcement from the one and only Ryan Rodriguez. So,
Hey Cesar, I'm Ryan Rodriguez, and this is a television. Television is a good example of how some societies adapted to US and European technologies. However, they use it for their own purposes. For example, in Zaire, Africa, they had television, but all they basically got to watch was their president, Mobutu Sese Seko. So a television is a good example of how some societies accepted adaptations of technology from Europe and the United States. However, they made it their own, and they they excluded any foreign influence. Another example is the internet, like in Vietnam and Iraq, because in there, for internet, like they adapted to it. However, they made it their own, and they excluded any foreign influences. Like for the internet, they limited access to certain servers that were from foreign nations. So the internet and television is a good example of how some societies adapted to the ideas of European and United States technologies. However, they made it their own, and they excluded any foreign cultural interruptions and influences.
Thank you.
That was job well done and very